At dawn, the sky was bruised purple, torn between night and day. A mist rolled low across the waves, and the sea seemed oddly calm, as if it were holding its breath. The submersible lumen bobbed against the research vessel's side, its silver hull gleaming faintly in the dim light. It was a compact craft spherical cockpit, reinforced viewing glass, clawed manipulators folded neatly at its sides, a machine built to withstand the crushing pressures of the abyss. Dr. Alara Voss adjusted her headset as she climbed inside, her heart hammering despite the steady motions of her hands. This was her mission, her obsession, to follow the anomaly into the trench and see what no human eyes had ever seen before. Malik Santos slid into the co-pilot's chair beside her, a veteran diver. His presence was grounding, his calm steadying hers. He flashed her a half-grin, though his eyes betrayed unease. "Don't worry, Doc. We'll be back up in time for breakfast." The hatch sealed with a metallic hiss, and the outside world faded to muffled silence. Then came the plunge. The crane released them into the water, and the lumen slipped beneath the waves with barely a splash. Blue sunlight filtered down in trembling shafts at first, but soon it grew muted, then murky, until the world outside was swallowed in deep green. Alara monitored the depth gauge as numbers ticked upward. 100 meters. 203. The ocean grew heavier, pressing at the glass like a living thing. At 400 meters. They reached the anomaly. It appeared not as a sudden wall, but as a gradual distortion, like heat ripples on asphalt, only alive. The black current twisted around them, vertical streams of particles spiraling in opposite directions, shimmering as if made of liquid glass. The lumen's lights caught on it, scattering in unpredictable angles. For moments, it looked as though they were inside a cathedral of light, with shifting walls and endless corridors. Shapes flickered inside, human silhouettes, fish, something with too many limbs. Each time the beam swept over them, they dissolved into nothing. Alara leaned forward, her breath fogging the glass. "It's not illusion. It's refracting reality itself." Malik adjusted the thrusters, guiding them closer. His knuckles whitened around the controls. "Or it's trying to show us what it wants us to see." The current pulsed around them, like a heartbeat. Then came the sound, a low scrape against the hull, slow, drawn out. Not the sudden clatter of rockfall, nor the clumsy strike of a drifting creature. This was deliberate, measured, like a fingernail dragging across glass. The lumen shuddered, a tremor running through its frame. Alara stiffened. Her voice was barely audible. "That wasn't debris." Malik swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "No, that felt like it was. Testing us." The scrape came again, circling, as though something enormous was moving in the dark, running its body along the hull to feel them out. The floodlights strained into the murk, beams cutting through green water, and then the darkness shifted. At first Alara thought it was the current itself bending strangely. Then she realized it was a shadow, a shape too massive to comprehend at once. Serpentine, vast, moving with impossible grace. The current parted around it, streams bowing away as if in deference. The submersible's floodlights trembled across its surface, catching glimpses, plates, of chitinous armor, glistening like wet obsidian, ridges bristling with faintly glowing spines, a jawline as long as the lumen itself, and then the eyes. 2 yellow orbs, each the size of lifeboats, flared open in the dark. Vertical pupils narrowed sharply as they focused on the tiny craft. For a long, terrible moment, there was silence. Alara forgot to breathe. Her entire body went rigid. It was not just the size, not just the impossible presence of it. It was the intelligence behind those eyes. They were not the eyes of an animal. They were eyes that judged, that weighed, that considered. The water seemed to thrum with its awareness. Then the submersible's instruments began to scream. Depth alarms blared. Sonar fractured into jagged bursts. The creature was emitting a Frequency low, guttural, felt more in their bones than in their ears. The glass vibrated, rattling against its frame. Ilara clutched her console with white fingers. It's communicating. Malik's voice was a rasp. Communicating, or warning. The yellow eyes moved closer, filling the viewport. Each blink was a shudder of night falling, then lifting. Something brushed the lumen again, heavier this time. The entire craft rocked sideways, as though nudged by a continent. Malik fought the controls. If it wanted us gone, we'd be gone already. The words did little to comfort. The creature lingered, circling them with a predator's patience. Then, slowly, it tilted its massive head. Spines along its flanks ignited in rolling patterns of light, first blue, then green, then a pulsating crimson dot. It was language, a warning written across its body. Ilara's lips trembled as she whispered, more to herself than to Malik. It's not showing aggression, it's showing restraint. The current flared around them. For an instant, Ilara swore she saw something deeper, far below the monster's coiling body. Stone, structures, carvings older than any civilization she had studied. A city buried in shadow, and then, just as quickly, it was gone. The monster's body blocked the view again, a living wall of armored flesh and light. The hum intensified, rattling their bones until teeth ached. Ilara pressed her headset, speaking into the static that was their only link to the surface. This isn't a guardian of the current. It's a guardian of whatever lies beneath it. The creature's yellow eyes narrowed further, as if to confirm her words. And then, with a single surge of its massive body, it vanished into the dark, leaving the lumen trembling in its wake. At dawn, the crew prepared the submersible lumen for launch. The sea was eerily calm, as if it too were holding its breath. A pale light spread across the horizon, but it did little to chase away the heaviness in the air. On deck, Jonas checked the final clamps on the winch. His hands were steady, but his eyes betrayed nerves. "Keep comes open at all times," he reminded. "The current isn't stable. If anything feels wrong, anything you abort and surface." Ilara, the mission's lead oceanographer, nodded. She strapped herself into the lumen's cramped cockpit beside Malik, a seasoned diver with nerves of steel. Malik adjusted the oxygen regulators, muttering under his breath, "Steel or not, I don't like blind dives." With a metallic groan, the lumen was lowered into the ocean. The water closed around them, muffling the world above. The descent was slow, steady, mechanical. The surface light dimmed to green, then to a murky twilight. At 200 meters, the pressure whispered against the hull. At 300, the colors drained further, shadows thickening into walls. By 400 meters, they reached it, the black current. It wasn't like any natural current ever recorded. It appeared as a colossal vertical tunnel inside the ocean, itself streams of particulate matter, twisting like twin helixes, spiraling in opposite directions, colliding and separating as though alive. The walls shimmered, a strange mixture of silver, ink, and green, bending the lumen's searchlights in unnatural arcs. Malik leaned forward, his face lit by the soft glow of the controls. "Looks like we're in a throat," he whispered. "And it's breathing." Shapes darted inside the shimmering walls. Long humanoid silhouettes, glimmers of fins. Once, Ilara thought she saw a hand, pale, skeletal, brushing the current from the inside, but every time the lumen's lights touched them, they vanished, as though they'd never been there. A metallic screech jolted them both. Something scraped the hull, not a rock, not debris. The sound was slow, deliberate, like claws dragging across steel. The vibration rattled through their seats. Malik froze, staring at the console. His lips were pale. "That wasn't random," he muttered. "It felt like it was testing us, like knocking on a door." Ilara tried to keep her voice even. "Maybe it's just a pressure fluctuation." The scraping came again, louder this time, closer. The lumen shuddered as if something massive had brushed against it. The floodlights swayed, cutting through the gloom. Then, ahead of them, the darkness moved. Not like shifting water, not like drifting sediment. A shadow, vast, serpentine, blocking their path. It lingered just beyond the cone of their lights. The size was impossible to estimate. It seemed to stretch endlessly, disappearing into the blackness of the current. Alara's breath caught in her throat. "Malik, do you see that?" Before he could answer, the darkness split. Two yellow eyes opened, each the size of lifeboats. They didn't blink, they didn't shift, they just opened, pouring sickly golden light into the gloom, fixing themselves on the tiny submersible, as though appraising it. Malik's hand hovered over the throttle, but he didn't move. His voice was barely a whisper. "That's no fish. That's not even close." The eyes narrowed. A low-frequency hum filled the water, vibrating the hull of the lumen so violently that Elara's teeth ached. She covered her ears, but it was useless. The sound wasn't just heard, it was felt, resonating in bone and blood. The creature's body began to emerge from the dark, a serpentine length, armored in plates of chitin that glinted faintly under the sub's lights. Along its flanks, bioluminescent spines unfurled, each one pulsing with soft blue light, cascading in deliberate patterns, like a language. The patterns spread across its body in rippling waves, faster now, repeating in rhythm, not random, not chaotic, structured. Ilara's scientific instincts fought against her fear. She reached for the recording module. "It's signaling," she whispered. "It's trying to communicate." Malik shook his head, eyes locked on the beast. "Or it's telling us we don't belong here." The creature didn't attack. It hovered in the current, coils shifting lazily, watching them with eyes too intelligent, too deliberate. The spines glowed brighter, their rhythm accelerating, until the hum in the water synced with the pulses of light. Ilara's heart pounded in time with it. The thought struck her like ice. It's inside us. The rhythm, the signal, it's syncing with our bodies. Then, without warning, the monster shifted. Its enormous tail swept past the lumen in a single motion. The water convulsed, pulling the submersible deeper, spinning it as if caught in a whirlpool. Warning, alarms blared. Malik fought the controls, teeth gritted. "It's not letting us go. We're in its current now." Alara clutched the console, her knuckles white. She stared into those unblinking yellow eyes as the creature spiraled around them, faster and faster, until the walls of the black current collapsed into a funnel of motion and light. Down they went, dragged into the unknown, and all the while, the creature's spines pulsed faster, speaking in a language no human had ever heard. A warning, or a summons, they didn't yet know which. The creature's body uncoiled, a shadow-given form, plated with ridges of chitin that glimmered like wet, blackened armor. As it moved, its size became incomprehensible, not just a fish or serpent, but something primeval, its length vanishing into the abyss. Along its massive flanks, bioluminescent spines rippled in waves of color, shifting from deep violet to pale blue, then back again. It was deliberate, calculated, not the random flicker of a deep-sea organism. It was language. Malik's breath caught in his throat, fogging his faceplate. It's talking," he muttered, though even he didn't seem to believe his own words. Alara leaned forward, her voice a whisper that barely carried in the sub's cabin. "It's not attacking, it's watching us." Then came the sound. No, not a sound but a vibration, so low and deep it made their bones ache. A low-frequency hum flooded the water around them, rattling every bolt and seam of the lumen. Their teeth buzzed. Their hearts pounded in sync with the resonance, like the ocean itself was trying to take control of their rhythms. The beast circled, spiraling around them in slow arcs. Its enormous body displaced entire columns of water, creating currents that twisted the lumen like a toy in a storm drain. The control sticks trembled in Malik's hands as he fought to stabilize the submersible, but the ocean wasn't obeying physics anymore. "Ilara," he barked, sweat streaking down his forehead. "The ballast tanks aren't holding. Something's pulling us." The spiral tightened. The sub's instruments went haywire, depth readings jumping from 400 meters to 800 in seconds, then back again, as if reality itself was folding, and then gravity tilted. The crew's stomachs lurched as the lumen was dragged nose first, sliding down through the spiral of disturbed water like a bead in a funnel. Warning alarms blared red across the dash. Malik tried to force the thrusters, but the ocean had chosen for them. They were being pulled into the trench. The darkness thickened until it wasn't water anymore, but a void. Then, out of that endless black shapes appeared, not fish, not debris, but structures. Massive stones, carved with precision, rising like pillars from the seafloor. Each one was half buried under centuries of coral, fanworms, and encrusting growth, but their patterns remained clear. Intricate grooves and spirals, carved into the rock with impossible symmetry, and on those stones, symbols that glowed faintly with their own light, pulsing in rhythm with the monster's bioluminescent spines. Ilara pressed her palm against the glass, her eyes wide. "Oh my God, it's the same language. The creature, it's connected to this." Malik swallowed, his voice hoarse. "That's not a ruin, that's a warning sign." Before Ilara could respond, Jonas's voice crackled over the coms, filled with static and panic. "You're not going to believe this." The transmission broke, warping under interference. Then came his voice again, sharp, urgent. "The current, it's moving toward the ship." The lumen shook violently as the trench walls seemed to breathe, exhaling a rush of bubbles that rattled their hull. Above them, unseen but felt, the black current surged like a tide, no longer passive. It was shifting, changing direction, and now it was rising. Ilara's heart thudded as realization crashed over her. The ship Aurora's wake it's directly in its path, and all around them, in the gloom of the trench, the ruins seemed to stir. The carvings pulsed brighter, as though awakened by the monster's call. The hum grew louder. The guardian in the deep had shown them its territory. Now, something else was coming. On the surface, chaos. The sea, once deceptively calm, convulsed as if alive. The black current surged upward, erupting beneath Aurora's wake with the force of an undersea quake. Waves lashed the deck, swallowing lifeboats whole and snapping, mooring lines like thread. The ship groaned, metal shrieking under impossible strain as it lifted, tossed high on the swell like a child's toy. For one sickening instant, the massive research vessel hung sideways, its bow clawing skyward. Crew clung desperately to railings, their cries ripped away by the howling wind and roaring surf. A crane tore free from its mount, crashing across the deck in a shower of sparks, narrowly missing the cluster of scientists scrambling for cover. Then the ocean broke open. The monster breached. It rose in silence, an unfathomable mass that seemed to block the very sky. Water sheeted off its armored hide in shimmering curtains, cascading like black waterfalls. Its full length uncoiled. In the stormlight, dwarfing the vessel in scale so immense that even Malik, hardened by years beneath the sea, could not comprehend where it began or ended, and yet it did not strike. Instead, its colossal body arched gracefully, curling around the ship without touching. Scales the size of shields glimmered as it formed a perfect living spiral, encasing Aurora's wake in a cage of flesh and light. The sea roared into its shape, a vortex spiraling inward, dragging foam and wreckage down into its maw. The ship shuddered, teetering on the edge of that deadly whirlpool. One slip, one strike, and it would vanish beneath the waves forever. Below, in the lumen, Ilara's hands trembled against the viewport. Her breath came in short, visible bursts of fog. Across the glass, It's not killing them," she whispered, voice trembling with awe. It's holding them, holding the ship in place. The creature's spines lit faster now, each glowing pulse, sharp and urgent. The patterns ran like sentences, like frantic speech in a tongue older than humanity. The whole ocean seemed to flicker with its message. Malik gripped the console, his knuckles bone-white. His voice cracked as he spoke. It's signaling us. It's telling us to leave. Ilara turned to him sharply. Leave? You think it wants us to abandon Aurora's wake? It has them trapped. No, Malik interrupted, shaking his head. His eyes stayed fixed on the pulsing lights outside. Not trapped, protected. Don't you see? The vortex. He jabbed a finger toward the spiral of roaring water above. That's not an attack. It's a barrier. It's keeping something out. For a moment, silence filled the lumen, broken only by the groaning of their hull and the monster's resonant hum. Then Jonas's voice screamed through the cums, fractured by static. Ilara, Malik, get out now. It's not alone. The channel dissolved into white noise. Ilara's heart thudded. She stared again at the patterns along the monster's body, the lights throbbing faster, almost panicked now. Her instincts screamed in unison with Malik's words. It wasn't threatening them, it was warning them. The black current rose higher, a wall of water clawing toward the sky, and deep beneath the spiral, further down in the trench, a second vibration stirred the darkness, louder, heavier. Something else was waking, and the guardian of the current was telling them to run before it arrived. Back on Aurora's wake, silence hung heavy as fog. The survivors moved like ghosts, their bodies trembling with exhaustion, their eyes wide with something deeper, not just fear, but realization. They had seen power beyond comprehension, violence beyond scale. Some clung to the rails and stared at the black water, as if expecting it to rise again. Others whispered prayers that tangled into sobs. Ilara didn't speak. She couldn't. Her boots echoed on the steel deck as she crossed to the lumen's console. The submersible sat tethered, dripping brine, its instruments still running. She slid into the chair, fingers numb as they skimmed across damp glass screens. The sonar logs had been recording the entire time, every pulse, every ripple, every movement beneath them. Her throat was dry as she scrolled back through the data. The screen pulsed with green waves, jagged peaks marking what lay in the deep. And then she saw it. Her breath caught at first. She thought the reading was wrong, a ghost signal, interference from the black current. But no, the numbers didn't lie. The image formed in rough grain, the serpentine curve of something vast, something alive, circling just below Aurora's hull, the guardian. But then, another peak, lower, further down, even bigger, motionless, watching her pulse hammered as the truth carved itself into her mind. There hadn't been one monster, there had been two. One had risen to meet them, spiraling like a living storm. The other had never moved. It lingered in the cold dark below, its size dwarfing even the first, and it wasn't alone in its stillness around it. The sonar traced jagged silhouettes, fragments of geometry that no current could shape, columns, walls, angles older than thought, ruins, ELARA, single quotes. S hands shook so violently she almost dropped the screen. Malik appeared beside her, his face gray, his voice low and cracking. Guardians. The word hung there, heavy as the sea. Ilara's lips parted. Slowly, almost against her will, she nodded. No, her voice was barely a breath. Her eyes didn't leave the screen as she whispered the word that turned Malik's blood to ice. Jailers. Malik stared, uncomprehending. What are you saying? Ilara swallowed hard, forcing the truth past the lump in her throat. The ruins, they're not a city, they're a seal, a lock. The black current isn't just some freak oceanic phenomenon, it's the barrier. And those things, the ones we thought were defending the trench, they're not guarding treasure. They're guarding something else. She tapped the sonar image, her finger trembling over the static silhouette far below. They've been keeping it down there, trapped, for millennia. Malek's breath fogged the glass as he leaned closer, eyes wide. Something worse than them. Alara's jaw tightened. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The silence between them screamed loud enough. A groan of distant thunder rolled across the horizon. Both of them flinched, though the sky above was clear now, calm, almost unnaturally so. The storm was gone. The sea shimmered like black glass, as if mocking the chaos that had consumed them moments ago. But to Alara, the calm was worse than the storm. Her mind replayed every signal, every pulse of the Guardian's bioluminescent spines. It hadn't been attacking blindly. It had been sending a message, a warning, urgent, desperate. Leave, because if that seal broke, if the trench was breached, if the ruins shattered, whatever lay imprisoned in that crushing dark would rise, and it wouldn't stop. Alara gripped the console, knuckles white, her breath shallow as the words crawled out of her throat like a curse. They weren't protecting us, she said. They were protecting what lies below. From us. Her eyes lifted to the horizon, flat, endless, innocent as glass. But in that stillness, she felt it, the weight pressing up from beneath, a hunger old as the planet itself, waiting for the first crack in its cage. She shivered. The world above had no idea, and now, thanks to the Meridian, thanks to human greed, the first crack had been made.